Back after a week hiatus, man. My name's Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
This is the Cartoonist Kayfabe semi-weekly shoot.
Mostly weekly.
Mostly weekly shoot for the weekend of
April 26th.
It's been reasonably eventful since we last did a weekly shoot, man. 10-bell salute to several fallen comrades, Monkey Punch, mangaka, and also, it's going to be tough to pronounce the man's name. Is it Kazuo Koike?
I'm happy to defer to your expertise in that matter.
The writer of Lone Wolf and Cub, Crying Freeman, Samurai Executioner. 81, 82 years old, man. That's a good run.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a full title list on his resume.
Did you ever get a chance to read all of Lone Wolf and Cub?
No, I originally read some of it when it first came out in the 80s from First Publishing. Like, that was one of those early exposure to early mangas, but I have not read it in its entirety.
I recommend it. I read it completely 2 times, and I've been looking for an excuse to get back to it and give it another round, you know what I'm saying, man? Because it is so good. It's just, it's 8,000 pages.
Right. Yeah. That's what's kept me from finishing it.
I think one of the remarkable things about that series is that there really were no assistants. So it was Koike and Kojima doing the whole thing, man. He got his start with the guy who made Go-Go 13 comics.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Kind of just like fell right in. And it's interesting in that he is solely a writer. When we think about mangaka, like, it's usually a cartoonist. Like, the assembly line is pretty much an American thing. But he is like one of the few like exceptional comic writers of Japan.
Yeah, I always wonder if that's limited to what's been translated, or if it really is that rarity, and it seems like it is.
Yeah. Another thing that Mr. Koike accomplished during his long career is he put together a kind of a Joe Kubert school for mangaka.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like, highly respected, and a lot of good people kind of like came through that school too. Some of the names, like, here's my problem when it comes to reading manga, and it's fully like my ignorance. I associate, like, say, the really long name that has like maybe 3 R's in it. Okay, that's the guy who drew Crying Freeman. You see what I'm saying? But I never like take the time to fully remember it. It's the same. It was the same deal with Sienkiewicz for the longest time, where I would see this like long S name with a Z at the end of it, and just know that it's this guy, and never like deigned to even try to pronounce it.
I've run into the problem now that there's just so many cartoonists, in addition to names that may be hard to pronounce and don't stick in my mind. It's also just the volume of cartoonists that I'll see and respond to. Like whenever we were kids, there were 7 guys or something, and now it's 7,000 names to try to remember and associate with the correct books and titles.
It should be like SAG as well, man, where if you have a name, like, you're the only one who gets to keep that name, because now there are 2 Kazes.
Yes.
There are 2 Kazes. There's a Kayfaber out there who sent us some comics named Jeffrey Brown.
Yeah, I've come across that one. There are several Ryan Browns that I'm aware of.
And
it can be hard to keep straight.
And we have filled the quota on cartoonists named Connor, so no more of those.
Ryan's a popular name. There are a lot of Ryans.
Nothing you can do about that one. Because I went to high school with 7 Ryans.
Yeah. I went to the smallest elementary school, and there was another kid with my birthday, and there were like 14 kids in my class. How do you do that?
I hear you, man. Like, I had a pretty small class as well, and my friend Deontay shared my exact birthday too. It was like a requirement that we be friends too. We were the best of friends. Were you cool ear guy?
Yeah, we were fine, but it still just was a small little tiny class. Like, how do you have to gang up birthdays?
Maybe your folks went on a double date.
Could be. I don't know my origin story that well, so it's possible.
You can hear my origin story on Wizard episode number 2, I believe. Shouts to Mom and my romantic father, man. Knocked up my mom during a drive-through screening of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the A picture. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is the B picture. And I'm sure I was inseminated around Attack of the Killer Tomatoes because you ever try to watch that flick?
No.
It's really boring. It's way less cool than the George Clooney movie. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
And it's way less cool, obviously, than the cartoon, which was awesome. So it's been a little while since we shot a weekly shoot, and that means lots of mail stacked
Yes.
up, man.
Yeah, it's I'm shocked by the mail PO box response that we have gotten.
And I'm not, because we're so cool and fly. And who else are you going to send shit to?
I hardly ever mail anything anymore. I guess orders now and then, but it's been new and exciting getting a bunch of mail from people, like real mail, not email.
So I had this Bill Gaines shirt on when I went to the post office on Saturday, and the mailman, you hold this like little piece of paper that lets them know that it lets you know that you have packages being held because they wouldn't fit in the PO box or whatever. And the guy's like, "Okay, which PO box are you?" Never really talked with this guy before, and I'm like 3071, sir. And he's like, "Well, how many trips do you want to make?" He said, and I'm like, "Oh, it's like that, huh?" He's like, "Why don't you just come around to this other door?" And you just hear boof, boof, boof. And he let me like use his like giant like mail cart, like the one that they use in the back there. He's like, "Yeah, just bring it back in a minute." And we got 60 pounds of comics from Jay McQuarns, the fellow who did the animated intro at the beginning of all our episodes. So shouts to Jay McQuarns. We're going to put that episode out within a couple of days. You and I cracked it open on cam. We went through the whole thing, showed off all the comics, and then we flipped the coin for who got to choose first, man. And as predicted, there was
some gems in there.
There was a Shaquille O'Neal in there.
I wanted to win that coin flip.
Yeah.
There were some stakes involved. That's fun though. It's kind of an unboxing. So those are popular videos. I'm excited to go through that. I've gotten to the point where that's some of my favorite digging is sort of just the unknown.
Yeah.
So much of my list I've kind of filled. I've found a lot of what I've been looking for. So going through random comic boxes, I get a lot of joy out of that. So thank you, Jay. Very fun. Looking forward to sharing that with everybody.
We got a bunch of stuff, man. So I figure, like, why not spend a couple minutes, 5-10 minutes, going through some gems, man. You want to pull something out real quick, and then I'll do the same?
Let's do it. First thing on the top of my list is Bubbles Zine number 2. I love the first issue of this zine. I've been seeing promotion for it. I almost ordered this one, and it turns out they sent us one before I could order one myself. But I love Bubble Zines number 1, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. It's old school zine, as we've talked about before, and a lot of content that I'm interested in.
A lot of people have sent us comics that they made, and there are some real highlights in there. My to-read pile is about this high, or like on the tabletop, man.
Yes.
So apologies if we don't get to everything in this broadcast, but it's in the queue. It'll get read, no doubt, man. But one of the highlights to me is this joint right here by the Coates brothers. It's called Dino Beasts, man, and it's big muscular dinosaurs, man, big muscular brontosauruses and things, duking it out and having battles. And to me, I'm a child of the 80s, and that was the greatest era for action figures and animated series, all that stuff. And this feels comfortably like a cousin to a lot of that stuff, Battle Beasts and all that kind of thing, man. So it was like, it struck a lot of chords with me, man.
Yeah, you posted a few pictures on the Instagram, and whenever I saw those, you got the mail before I did. I was thrilled by how this book looked and realized, like, I've corresponded with those guys.
Oh,
they
that's
had
cool.
sent me previews some time ago, and I was expecting like a little 24-page comic book, and it's like a big graphic novel, square-bound, oversized, full color. So really cool comics. I'm looking forward to reading that one as well. We got a package from Hawaii.
Yeah, from the proprietor of Maui Comics.
Yeah, Maui Comic-Con. It's a free convention that they hold every year at the University of Hawaii. I don't know how we haven't gotten our invite yet, but I love the free conventions. I feel like that's the ambassador to getting more people. But there's apparently a pretty big comic scene there of locals who are making comics in Hawaii, and he sent us quite a stack of these. I pulled out a couple. Kanaka Hawaiian Avenger and Pineapple Man, but he must have sent 20 different titles. It's amazing. I don't know anything about Hawaiian comics, so I'm really looking forward to kind of unpacking a few of these, going through them, and seeing what the scene is like. It's exciting to me that there's like comic scenes everywhere, including Hawaii. Like, shouldn't everybody be surfing and being outdoors? But apparently there's some nerds there too, so very awesome. Alika Seki thank you very much for thinking of us and sending these. I'm really looking forward to some different stuff.
Yeah, once again, the proprietor of Maui Comics and Collectibles, man. So if you're on the island, man, make sure you go check the shop out. Speaking of the island of Hawaii, we're going to be doing a book review on Dennis Goes to Hawaii.
Very
Dennis
good
the
timing.
Menace.
Yeah, I have a pineapple here somewhere, so maybe I should have had that out to plug the Maui Comic-Con.
That comic holds the distinction of probably being one of the widest selling comics ever. Like, forget what you heard about, Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man, when it hit 2 million, that it was the top selling book, because there were Captain Marvel comics that sold 2-3 million on a monthly basis.
Walt Disney Comics in the 60s peaked at around 2.5 million a copy. So,
and I still don't think that X-Men 1 has been beat. I think it might really be the legitimate, like 8 million copies or 8.6 million copies is pretty exceptional. But Dennis Goes to Hawaii might beat X-Force.
it has 9 printings, big releases over about a dozen years from the time it first came out. And, there are estimates for how many copies each one sold, but when it started, it was around 800,000 a clip was about the average. So it's just estimates. These numbers just don't exist for whatever reason, but conservatively, it's probably 5 million plus.
Back to the mailbag.
Yes.
Maui Comics, they sent us like this gang of Hawaiian comics. And this other fella named Tony Max sent us a gang of comics that he drew himself. Shouts to Tony Max, man. Several series here. And Homeboy is bringing back the prestige format.
Yeah, I'll say.
So I'm saying, like, this is issue 16 of a comic called The Golden Silence, man.
That's incredible.
And there's like 2 or 3 series in this pile. The Crimson Hand, issue 1. Very, very rigorous stuff. He handles all the work. It has a...
I should say full color, too. Like, these are produced comics, as you say, rigorous, Ed.
Yeah.
A lot of work on display here.
The art style reminds me a lot of the illustration style that was associated with those little homies quarter dispenser toys.
It's very polished.
Yeah. It's like lowrider art.
Yeah.
In a way. Because it's like an airbrush kind of color that looks like it would fit in that universe, man.
That's amazing. I enjoy the vision of these guys who, I mean, hundreds of pages of self-published comics in that pile. It's a lot of work. Dave Kirsch.
Great cartoonist.
Yeah, a guy that I met early on in my career making comics from small press. This is his after-school special. Dave's been making comics for a while, has a very unique, distinct style. Sent us some stuff, including a pack of famous comic book creators' trading cards,
yeah,
which I kind of love. I've never seen these before. I'm not sure when they're from.
I've always heard of them.
Thank you very much, Dave. Great package, and sends postcards and stickers and just samples of his art. So looking forward to getting through a bunch of this.
Yeah, I thought the Eclipse Comics put these out.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they did, and I think there were 2 sets of them.
That makes sense. Eclipse put out a lot of trading cards.
We got a great package from Mr. Ron Turner from Last Gasp Publications, man. Like, he scaled back the operation a lot. They used to put out like maybe say like 8 or 10 books a year. They scaled back to like just a few, one or 2 at a certain point. And goddamn it, if it isn't like 2 giant ringers, man. The Book of Weirdo, kind of an oral history of Robert Crumb's post-underground anthology magazine Weirdo that ran for 20-something, maybe 30 issues or so. And we get soup to nuts from the ground floor to the end, the tale of Weirdo magazine.
I've been seeing so many interesting cartoonists talking about this book and talking about reading a little bit of it each day.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. Like, that's such a historically rich period and such a great work to go through because of all the cartoonists that were part of it. I'm really looking forward to digging into that. So thank you very much for sending that, Ron.
Yeah, fascinating period of time. And I should say, John B. Cook, the guy who edited and put this book together, he made all of this happen for us. So we're going to probably have a Weirdo episode in the future. Maybe crack this open, and this will just kind of give us a little bit more of a knowledge behind the scenes on everything that happened with making that magazine happen.
Yes, it'll make our video about Weirdo much, much better and inform us quite a bit. This is a book about the Polish sculptor Stanislaw Zukalski.
Hey, man, I had to pronounce the Wolf Cup guy, so you got this one.
I think that his introduction to comics comes from a comic art collector, Glenn Bray.
It does, yeah.
And he collected comic art. He was an aficionado of professional wrestling, and he was a fan of this sculptor, and really kind of helped popularize this man's work in America, in the comic scene and outside of the comic scene in the art world. And so this is a book on him. I'm looking forward to this, and this may be something we cover at some point, looking at Glenn Bray and basically his legacy, including popularizing this Polish sculptor who would have probably been lost to history otherwise.
I posted the image of these book covers on our Instagram, and a lot of people said that they watched I guess maybe even right now, there's a Netflix documentary about him that Leonardo DiCaprio put together, because a lot of people don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio's dad was like juiced in with the underground cartoonist. Like he was an underground cartoonist from what I understand.
I did not know that. So
yeah, I heard
cool.
it from Jay Lynch whenever I was making comics with the guy. He mentioned, forget old man DiCaprio's name, but he's tied in. So Leo was checking that stuff from way back, man. So,
interesting.
So check out that Netflix doc. Confess I don't know the title, but a Kayfabe is going to put it in the comments, man. So always keep your eyes on the comments, because the Kayfabe Brain Trust, a lot of these comics came from them.
Yeah, for sure.
Smart crew, man. Another cool comic, it was a set of stuff that we got from this fella, Ian M., sent all the way from Japan. You know, he's out there alone, kind of on an island. He said, I went to Japan, just started my whole life over again, man. And this comic in particular, Alone in Kyoto, probably says everything you need to know about like having kind of the balls to just pack up and split. Kind of journalistic, but far more rigorously done. Nonfiction from what I understand. But we got so much more mail.
Yes, that is the tip of the iceberg. At some point, we may end up just putting a lot of this mail under the camera, because it is hard to keep up with, especially in this weekly format where we're just spending a few minutes pulling out some highlights. But keep that stuff coming. We definitely look at it all. We read all the letters. As I said, I'm amazed by it, overwhelmed by it, and love it. So if we haven't gotten to your stuff yet, don't be discouraged. We are getting through it. It just takes some time.
P.O. Box, Cartoonist Kayfabe, P.O. Box 3071, Munhall, Pennsylvania, 15120.
Want to continue mail with some emails?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so you can reach us through email at cartoonist.kayfabe@gmail.com. We got a couple of emails this week. This one is from Reed Chancellor. He's curious about how to approach doing nonfiction comics. He primarily works in nonfiction, and mentioned that his typical nonfiction greats, blankets and all of Box Brown's shit, but I am looking to branch out and, as you say, read more comics. So, Ed, I think you're an interesting person to talk about an approach to nonfiction comics. Obviously, Hip Hop Family Tree is nonfiction, but I find a lot of journalistic tendencies in the way you approach X-Men Grand Design. You know, it feels almost like biographical, of going through a lot of material that was published and sort of calling that into a story, almost like a biography of these characters. So any insights on people that are making nonfiction, and any advice, any approach, anything you've wrestled with?
A lot of Kayfabers have been asking about this comic that I have that's being sort of solicited through Fantagraphics called Mudfish. And it's sort of an autobiographical story of like when I was growing up and shit like that. And I decided to take it off the docket. That's going to be a posthumous work, because for like a Tupac album, you know what I mean? Like when I die, that thing's going to come out.
You're so far ahead of the game.
Because, and I might do more posthumous works too, man, like just in advance, because I do a lot of travel. So it's a lot of time spent in airports, and that book was drawn in airports and in hotel rooms, like on the road. And some of the problems I've been wrestling with is just that I'm close with a lot of this people who are subjects of the thing. So I want everybody to be well dead by the time this thing goes out, because you're going to judge people. And I don't want, like, it's okay if I say something about someone close to me, but if you do, or if I start to see articles about it, like, I'm going to regret it.
Right.
So that's like a big struggle that, like, I very nearly was like, yeah, let's put this out. Like, but, and then I had reservations, man, especially like the culture isn't in a place that is worthy of the story, as far as I'm concerned too, because like some of the things that are mentioned in there, like people are so knee-jerk and lame that it's just like, I'm not gonna even deal with those issues either, man. But Is he asking for recommendations of comics too?
Yeah, recommendations. He asks both. So any advice on doing nonfiction, but also recommendations. I jotted down a couple because I can't think on the spot anymore because I'm old and my brain doesn't work.
I have a couple regrets when putting Hip Hop Family Tree together that I think somebody dabbling in nonfiction should address like on their own. And I, of course, like I had many sources for a lot of the things that I put in stone finally. I basically tested this work by publishing it online, free, every week. So it was almost like crowdsourcing editorial in a way, because if I would have gotten something a little bit wrong, the anonymous internet douchebag is very happy to like let you know.
I remember when that was going through, and it would be interesting when somebody would fill in a gap, and sometimes somebody who was there, somebody noteworthy, maybe even a participant in the story.
Yeah, that was really cool. But the regret is that through the process of putting together each strip, I would compile information from many sources, and I didn't like cite or like annotate the thing or do like I'm not from academia. I barely was able to like get myself through high school because of like the authority problems that I have of like people telling me what to do, like honestly, so there's no way I'm gonna like spend big money to go. So like I just don't. It was never part of my world. But as I started to read more and just identify that as a mistake in my process. I wanted to make something very, very rich, and it would be all that more rich if people could then have further reading experiences and like dig a little bit deeper and find some of my sources. So that's like my big thing. Like cite your sources and include that material somewhere in the back or footnotes or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a very good note. Listing some recommendations, like I listed From Hell, which is not exactly nonfiction, but is well cited. Part of the reason I note that one is because of the citations that Alan Moore includes, where almost every page is referenced, so you can track that down further. I listed Chester Brown, some of his autobiographical work, and he's another person who puts a lot of annotations in his comics these days, and in some of the revised editions of his earlier comics. So I think that's a good note for somebody doing nonfiction is have some information about where you're coming from, where you're finding your source material.
I would be remiss if I wouldn't have mentioned what I consider to be the gold standard, which would be Harvey Picar's comics in terms of autobio. It's nonfiction, but it's more in the autobio world, but it's pretty freaking dope.
Yeah, I listed Linda Barry's 100 Demons and Phoebe Glockner's Diary of a Teenage Girl.
Yeah.
I think both of those are pretty outstanding autobio. My Friend Dahmer by Durf has enjoyed the last couple of years.
The 32-page comic is a perfect comic.
It is a very strong comic. One of my favorite comics, just ever, unqualified in terms of genre, is Radio and Illustrated Guide. Mm-hmm. It was done as a giveaway by This American Life, or maybe as a pledge drive giveaway. Jessica Abels, the cartoonist, worked with Ira Glass, the producer and creator of This American Life, and it goes through an episode of how they put together that show, which is like an 8-month process for a 1-hour show. It's really great, and I think it is a good place to look for ideas about how to construct a nonfiction story, because that's essentially what they're doing on This American Life, and it's really nuts and bolts, and you get some of Ira Glass's ideas on how to tell a story, how to edit a story. And you can find that collected in a book called Out on a Wire, in which she interviews a lot of other podcasters and storytellers and journalists about their process. So that's probably all the nonfiction advice you need in that book, Out on a Wire. And we'll put a link to that under this video as well.
It's a staple of the quarter bins, too, like the dollar bins. You could find that radio comic. Now, the thing is, it's about half size, man.
Yes.
So make sure
a little bit smaller. You got to really dig through the through the long boxes to avoid missing that one.
Want to get into process? Like, what have you been up to past week or whatever, man? Like the main nuts and bolts of Plain Jane's is complete. So what have you been doing with yourself?
I've been approving copy for that. I've been approving promotional things for that. So like the publicist I've met the publicist, and she sends things out like, do you want to do this event? Do you want to work with these people? Which is amazing. This is something I have not worked with a big publisher that has this kind of organization behind it.
Yeah, it's real publishing.
Yes, yeah, it is. So I've been doing that. I've been approving copy for, we're doing a hardcover, so the dust jacket came through, approved copy for that, put together blurbs and pull quotes from people. So it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, not that exciting. I'm also working on the Street Angel trade at the same time, and it's sort of similar, like I'm working on title pages, chapter breaks, biography, all those little pieces that go into making a book. And I've also been working on a zine that I may put together in print. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll just be digital about 1986 comics. So I've been doing that. A couple of days I've posted those on my Patreon. That's very fun going through 1986 stuff. We spend a lot of time with the early 90s, which is this boom period in comics. The mid 80s is sort of another one of those boom periods and one I'm very fond of. So I've been threatening to get into that for a while, and now I am.
You're a heck of a bookmaker, Jim. We just put out that show and tell episode, man, where it went into the nuts and bolts of you doing the book binding.
Yes, getting good response from that. My favorite part is everybody posting what I should collect or what they're planning to collect. So, please check that out if you have any interest in making books. It turned out to be a much easier process than I expected. It's hand binding hardcover books. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while and put off because I thought it would be too difficult. It wasn't as hard as I thought. It was fun to do. So if you're out there watching and thinking about binding some of your old comics, give it a shot. I would say it's very enjoyable. But the video covers process. It also links to some resources that'll kind of explain exactly how to do that. And, share below that video some of your ideas on what should be collected. One of my favorites is Warlock 5. Somebody suggested. Yes. But there's lots of good ones. 1963 is one that I'm thinking about collecting. That's the Alan Moore image comic. It's never been collected. I feel like that would be really cool in one volume.
Here's a question, man. Like, I watched the video, I dug the video, and I asked a bunch of stuff, like, as we were going through, but just I had so many other things come up in mind. Like, you said that you went to Half Price Books to get a hold of, like, old books to basically tear apart so that you could use the covers. So I'm imagining Jim Rugg is in Half Price Books, and he's got his stack of pages, and do you have to, like, compare it? Like hold up your stacks like to these hardcover books and imagine, like, yeah, this looks like it should be good. It's about the same size. I have, quarter-inch real estate, bigger. Like, that's a little more complicated than.
Yeah, I bought oversized books, so I wasn't measuring anything. It wasn't close. Like, the books that I bought, I ended up having to cut, 2 inches off of the cardboard or something. Okay. So they have a clearance rack, and it's like $1 or $2 books. And I just went in and grabbed a couple of big $1 books to harvest.
So, like, would you even cut the spine down, or you would? Okay, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I was imagining you like trying to get like the exact, like, I don't know, Home and Gardens book that might be the length of your Fireball book. Or
no, it was pretty easy because, like I said, it would be it'd be like a book the size of your hip hop, and my books were much, much smaller. So I just eyeballed it, and they have shelves of those books, those clearance books. Just find a couple of large hardcovers and roll the dice.
The Cartoonist Kayfabe World Takeover, man. It's a multi-part strategy. We have our books. We have our YouTube channel. You have your billboard out there. We have books all around the world. Like, Kayfabers have been tagging us in showing us copies of our book in, like,
Portugal recently, I saw.
How awesome.
Very.
And the fact that it's in Portugal, but the shop is called, like, BD Mania, which is, French. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. But you have your billboard in Times Square with the Street Angel skateboard. And I just made a deal with British Airways, man. They're finally going to have a direct flight from Pittsburgh to London. That's the only thing that sucks about Pittsburgh, in my opinion, is the fact that when you and I want to go someplace cool, we very often have to have layovers no matter what.
Yeah, this opens us up now for UK conventions.
Thought Bubble? Is that one?
Sure. Leeds. If you're in the UK and want to bring us out now, it's much more convenient for us.
So part of the initiative for British Airways to kind of like entice the Brits to come visit our fair city of 300,000 is to showcase some of the stuff that makes Pittsburgh cool, man. And one of the things that makes Pittsburgh cool is us. You and me, man. So they hit me up and they were like, hey, can we have some art to just kind of like blow up and put in exhibitions kind of like around the city, man, to just like highlight like the arts portion of like why you should come to Pittsburgh. And I was like racking my brain, Mac Miller, rest in peace. What other artist should get that honor? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, of course I will, man.
Very, very nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, super fun, man. So there are some travels in the works, maybe for that, but I agreed to go to Colombia. That's going to happen in early September, and then the next week is going to be SPX. But before both of those, we have Heroes Con.
Yeah, and it's shaping up. We've been talking to the organizers about some possible panels that we'll be on. We'll certainly be sharing that more as that information gets solidified. But we will be at Heroes Con, so anybody that's planning to travel to the show, add us to your list of people to check out there.
Jim and I are having it under over, man, to see how many Kayfabe shirts we see in the wild.
That's very true. Yeah, we'll do a complete report on the Kayfabe fashion in Charlotte afterwards.
And in the comments, if you're going to be at Heroes Con, we have certain ideas of what we want to do with our time on the panels. They were very nice with us, very accommodating, and they hit us up and were like, we will do whatever you guys want. We're fans of the show, we're fans of the podcast, and we want to give you guys basically as much time as you want. Do something every day if you feel like. And we are kind of corrupted by choice, and that causes a little bit of like the wheels to spin without much movement. So if there are some cool comments that are enticing and engaging, might end up being one of our panels.
Yeah, let us know what you're interested in seeing us do there, people you'd like to see us talk to. We have, as Ed says, we've got some plans for the show, and if half of them work, we're going to end up with really cool material for all of you. So, keep us posted on what you're looking for from Heroes Con.
They started soliciting the last X-Men trade called Extinction, and in the body of the promo materials, they announced the comic that I'll be coloring in the back. It's going to be X-Men 268, that standalone issue with Captain America, Black Widow, and Wolverine having some adventures in Madripoor. Man, I have about 4 or 5 pages left to color. What I was doing is coloring like a page a day. On top of all my other duties, man. It's like the nightcap is sitting with 400 DPI Jim Lee panels that the smallest one is like this big if you were to print it up
right.
like from the screen, and just see like all the little minutia that he puts in there. It gives me a way newer respect for the rigor of his work. But I think I have 20 pages colored. It's a 23-page story, and that's going to be a fun inclusion. And once I finish that, then there are a few more little details. I have to draw the back cover, have to come up with some good end papers, and maybe a little bit more art on the inside to just like let the thing feel like an actual book. I'll have it done by May, like mid-May maybe.
Ed, I'm curious. In your work process, because you're working on several books at a time, and several things with each book, how do you organize what you're doing? Like whenever we wrap up and I leave here, do you have a list of like, this is what I'm going to do next? Or this is what I'm going to do when I have an hour? Like how do you organize your time and what you're working on?
If I'm in the Kayfabe compound, it's work time. And I'm at the Kayfabe compound quite often. So I just, I have some idea. I have the 3 or 4 major things that I'm working on. On a day like today is Kayfabe day. So the second you guys split, I start cutting this Kayfabe weekly. And as my nightcap, I will color a page tonight. And I just sort of know that. So it's like I have my big projects, and I just try to hit a couple of pages. I try to hit my marks. I set up the marks. I don't write anything down. I did just get a day planner, so I'm going to actually start putting that to use. But as far as I can tell, I haven't missed a beat. Like nothing has gotten by me. I've made this mistake in the past, though, where I agreed to, like, say, a show or something, and when I go to, a check-in, I go, oh, no, they have my name as Edmund Piskor. So that's a problem. Like the work never gets sacrificed. It's that kind of stuff that gets messed up. That's the kind of thing where I could benefit from, like, an assistant or something like that. But
Do you put that off and then have to just keep it in your head, like an email or correspondence for those kinds of things, or do you typically handle that as soon as it crosses your path?
Straight away, man.
Yeah.
I learned that from my editors at Boing Boing, because whenever they take a break or something, they'll have 100 emails, and in those like life hacker listicles or whatever, the rule of thumb is shock and awe. Just delete every email. Don't even look at them. If you get 100 emails, just delete them all and just like start fresh. And I just don't have the balls to do that.
Yeah, that gives me anxiety just hearing you say it out
Yeah,
loud.
yeah, but that's what the Boing Boing people, they're proponents of that. And
That's not where I thought you were going with that.
the way to mitigate that is just as they come in, address it, or it might not
Yeah.
get addressed, man.
Yeah, I tend to handle emails maybe twice a day. Try to block it all at that time.
My problem is I have the Gmail notifier
Right.
that I have on my, so I hear that little click and it's very Pavlovian.
Yes. I too am prone to distraction. That's part of why I ask you this question, because now, whenever I'm wrapping things up and sort of juggling a few projects, it's whenever that multitasking, I struggle the most to manage that. And so I do make lists. And sometimes that works well, but not always.
The big struggle that I'm kind of dealing with is really acknowledging my addiction to the phone and just picking it up so much, just checking social media stuff. I think they say that the average amount of pickups per person per day is something like 200.
Yeah.
And mine is like over 800. Like there are apps you could get, and I'm just trying to address that. Like keep the phone away, because listen, we talked about the Lone Wolf and Cub guys. You don't get to make 8,000 pages in 2 years if you're playing on Instagram all day or whatever.
Absolutely true.
So you gotta,
for sure.
you gotta curb that stuff, man. But one of the things that I got busy with the past week and a half since we last kicked it is continuing to write my new comic. And there are only about 5 more pages of the first issue. Like I'm going to have it broken up in like 3 32-page chunks. And I call them chunks now because they may be released as issues, or maybe it'll be like 3 acts or something, 3 episodes of a bigger book if I publish it just ad hoc, like as a big volume. So I just have like 5 more pages, and fleshing this thing out, it's amazing because I'm not married to anything that's on the pages right now, but it's like every page like serves a function for the story to advance the narrative. So I know that, okay, this page is for like what I want to get across here is, the isolation of this guy a little bit more. And I have a situation where that takes place. But through the process of writing this whole thing, maybe I'll come up with a better scenario to like get that point across. And it's so fun, man, just having the gears grind. But it's also a different kind of exhausting because this is where all the real work is being done.
Right.
And I decided that I'm going to write the whole thing first in this way, draw a quick and dirty version of the comic on typing paper. I'm going to do all of that first to just like see what it all looks like so that I can then go back and have it all in mind and make it just even more rich. So where I'm at right now with it, by just doing this draft, this is draft 4 basically, because just arranging what happens on each page, I did that 3 times, but until I felt comfortable enough that everything was where it should be. And I was struggling with about an 8-page sequence last week when we shot, and I addressed all of that and retooled everything, and it's so much stronger. I can't wait to put it out into the universe.
That's very consistent with my own process and experience. Like you put this stuff down and it doesn't have to be perfect, and you have to just overcome that part and put it down. Once it's out of your head and on paper, it's like your brain can then go into the next gear of like revising it, thinking about it, working on it. But that's a stumbling block for a lot of people. I see it in students. I'm in the starting finals right now.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing all these stories come in, and I've seen the progression of those stories. And you see that stumbling block of like that first draft isn't right. And that can be very frustrating and a stopping point if you're not careful. But if you just put it down in the state that it's in, your brain works. It gives it something almost like raw material that you can then refine.
Totally.
Which I find to be a fun step as well. Getting that draft is like, okay, now I can go to work.
Yeah. Like it's very exciting. It's something I've been itching to get back to ASAP when I was working on X-Men. X-Men took double the amount of time that I thought it was going to take, just because drawing 50 characters on the page takes a couple minutes, man.
Yeah, those are massive books.
Yeah. So it's like I was chomping at the bit to get busy with this, and I'm really loving like just the whole process, man, of just getting back to my own thing. Like you guys don't know this world that I'm creating, so it's like it's up to me to kind of like flesh it all out and make it feel lived in, make it feel real. I have to say that I'm applying things that I'm picking up from you and Tom when we do like the Akira episodes, just certain things that you guys keep in mind, certain things that you bring up, and I'm able to take these conversations and apply the things I learned from both of you guys directly to my work the next day.
Yeah, that's another interesting piece is, like people write to us and they'll be like, hey, how do you approach this or give me advice on that? But we're constantly learning also, whether it's those lecture series, like we tend to share videos back and forth whenever we see a creator talking about their process. Even now, it continues to morph. We continue to learn. When you were describing like your pages, it reminded me a little bit of Neil Gaiman, his master class, when he's talking about breaking down a comic and actually folding a piece of paper so that he has like, this is going to be on this page and this is going to be on this page. It reminds me of manga artists and writers who, write their scripts in like art form where it's like you get to see those page breakdowns. So hearing you describe that is in line with my experience, both making comics, but also reading about how other people approach making comics. So I think that's a good thing for a young cartoonist to keep in mind. Like this process never stops evolving. At least I don't think it should. I imagine you would get stale if it did.
You see the people who approach this as like this is their office job and their work maintains this like consistency. But we're going to be putting out a Palmer's Picks where we're talking about Love and Rockets. And Jaime and Gilbert both are just freaking getting better and better and better. So that lets you know that you could be at the top of the game, but those guys are still learning as they progress and get more pages under their belt. So unless you think you're better than the Hernandez bros, man, you better stay a student.
Yeah, keep evolving.
I'm kind of juiced up to get back to making comics, but we have some other videos that we're going to be shooting tonight. We're going to be reviewing Dark Knight Returns, man. Four episode series.
It's been a fun one to revisit and to prep for. That's probably one of the first graphic novels I ever read. So in a way, that's the comic I've been reading the longest.
Yeah.
It's probably 30 years ago, maybe the first time I read that book. I'm excited by going through it this past week, making some notes, thinking about it differently, and curious to hear what all of you take away from that book.
Same. So we're going to go review Dark Knight Returns. We're going to go draw some comics. Jim's going to go hand bind some comics, man.
Maybe. Maybe.
So you guys know what to do, man. Like, subscribe, and follow the YouTube channel. Once you hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, and it'll notify you whenever we have new vids available. We usually have 2 videos at least per week.
You can pick up Cartoonist Kayfabe merch on our spread shop. There's a link below this video to that. And right now, April 25th and 26th, there's a big sale there. 20% off everything. The code word is 20April19. So it's only a 2-day sale. It's a pretty good discount. We're constantly putting up new designs. So go check out the Kayfabe merch shop at Spread Shop and get yourself something nice to wear.
And we just informed you what we're going to be doing with our time as soon as we get off of this thing, man. But you guys know what your marching orders are.
Read more comics.